We're excited to have everyone here. My name is Maija Ehlinger, and I'm with General Assembly Atlanta. We're so excited that we are putting on, in collaboration with TAG, this 3-part job seeker series. And we're excited for this partnership. And of course, this is a unique and challenging time for many of us. And so we want to make sure that we can be a resource for you, help you navigate wherever you might be professionally or in the job search or what have you. So, of course, today's topic is about how to job seek remotely, which is something that many people will be doing right now. So we have a panel of experts here, and I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves individually. And from there, we'll dive into what is the job search, what does it look like now? What are some challenges? What are some things you can be doing? And then, of course, we want to open it up to questions from you. If you're here logging on, we want to hear from you and how we might be able to be of assistance and be a resource for you all. So please feel free to chat your questions, and we will make sure that we get to them at the end. So I'm going to turn it over to everyone to introduce yourselves. Let's start with Martin. Take it away.
All right. Hello. Is it coming through? All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Martin McGovern. I'm a career coach with GA in Chicago as well as San Francisco. And I also am the founder of a company called Career Therapy. I have a background in marketing, and what I try and do is help people sort of reverse engineer marketing tactics that companies use to sell you products, to sell them on you and get their money. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. The next box over for me, at least, is Danny. So why don't we hear from you?
Hey guys, it's Danny Wiley with Rezult Group. I'm a local IT recruiter, business development manager, and Rezult Group, we're actually throughout the whole Southeast. We're also headquartered in Nashville, been around for 20 years. So we've got a lot of experience that backs up my firm, especially during wild economy times. For example, we've been around since 9/11, went through 2008, and we're going through this right now and still putting people to work. And there's going to be methods and tactics that we can help and really narrow down how your success hit ratio, as far as putting your resume in the right hand or in the right direction. And that's what we do for a living. So can't wait to discuss further and tell you all about it.
All right. That leaves me. Hi, everyone. My name is Anika Fisher. I am a career coach at General Assembly in Atlanta. My background is really in the higher ed student affairs space. And then I did a little bit of work with nonprofit education. And so coming to you today, I guess I can explain just for myself and Martin, we focus at GA's career coaches on immersive students who are with us for about 10 to 12 weeks. Career changing. So I'm actually really excited to hear what everyone else has to share around the topic today. So thanks.
Great. And we're so excited to have all of your different backgrounds and expertise on this as we dive in. And so I wanted to start by getting everyone's, all of your thoughts on, of course, we're in the middle of times of uncertainty. We don't really know what's going to happen in the future. The economy is changing, and kind of our expectations of work and career might be changing as well. So I wanted to kind of start off with how is the job search now different than it was maybe in January for people, but also how is anything the same? Are we still, are there certain things about job searching now that are kind of constant that we all need to be thinking about?
Yeah, I'll take into that one.
Awesome.
Well, constant and compared to January now, the one thing that will always be constant in job searching, job hunting, switching careers is the one rule Rezult Group has been living since, inception 20 years ago until now, through hard times, up and down in the market. Golden rule. You got to first apply one concept. Who is in your network? Who is there to give you a referral? How is that going to help you connect the dots to getting your hand shaken by someone that might be able to know someone, or put your resume in the right hands so they can? And no matter how you cut it, all the other stuff that everyone else is going to do, like the career builders, the LinkedIn, those are, I call, you got to do those. Those are a must. You have to participate in those. But at the end of the day, it's the first step. Who do you know? Who knows who? And can you connect the dots by just introducing yourself and giving you a better successful hit ratio by just asking? And you have not because you asked not. So get out there and talk to your inner circle.
Yeah, I'll definitely double down on that. I think when it comes to things that are the same, networking is just as important. Applying is just as important. Getting your face and your name out there is just as important as always. But how you do it might be a little differently now. I think the biggest things to think about when it comes to the changes is the change in conversation and, reaching out to people in a way that will get them to respond. We're all sort of, a lot of folks are in quarantine, so there's not really a lot of places for them to go if you want to talk to them and get a phone call set up. So on the one hand, that's a positive. But on the other hand, we might be reaching out to people who have been furloughed or been laid off, and it's not necessarily reflected on their LinkedIn yet. So there's quite a few things that we need to start thinking about in regards to how we're reaching out. And I think, the typical gut instinct way to reach out is for a job. And I always say, if your first contact with someone is asking about a job, that's kind of like asking to get married on a first date. You're going to get some weird responses, and people aren't going to want to engage. So we really have to start thinking much more long term with professional relationship building, and thinking about how do I actually get to know people in my network before I start making asks, before I start doing these things. Because the competition going into the job market right now is huge. Like the number of people looking for jobs, the number of qualified people, of people who were recently laid off but were just promoted 2 months ago, right? People that are at the top of their game. Everyone is kind of out there in the mix. And so we sort of have to step our game up and think about, how are we talking to people? How are we talking to companies? Are we talking about it from how do these people solve my problem? Or are we talking about it from how do I solve other people's problems and make their lives easier? And what I'm seeing a lot right now is people talking about how they're in trouble rather than talking about how they solve problems. And it's a tonal shift. We don't want our brand to be one of I'm struggling. We want our brand to be one of I bring value. And so that's something I'm trying to help people get back to.
Yeah, just helping along the conversation. We know networking, right, triple threat there. But I think it's important to know that networking gives you the edge of information, right? You just get more information because you are networking. And so whether that's through an event, which there's a lot of events like these, and then that's a one-on-one conversation, I think you got to take advantage of, like y'all are saying, the relationships. Another thing that's like the same and different is this pivot opportunity, right? So with the numbers being, 30 million or something like that around people who are not working, there's going to be an opportunity to pivot if you see it as an opportunity, right? If you see it as kind of what Martin was saying, if it's a detriment to you, it's like harming your career, then yeah, you're going to have a little bit of trouble, but this is the time to kind of dig deep at that thing. And I love the idea of what you're saying around putting it out there differently, but I think now's the time to be really creative. Can you walk someone through your resume through a very quick video while they have the resume? Can you enhance the way that you put text into your LinkedIn posts, like things like that? I think now is the time to if you had that idea before, it's okay to employ it during this period.
Awesome. That's I think very, very important to think about that mind shift right now in terms of tactics. And I actually want to dive into that a little bit more right now in terms of, I know I've done coffee Zoom meetings and things like that, which can feel a little daunting to get off the ground or to ask someone for something that you may have just been able to meet them for coffee in a traditional sense, and perhaps that's not possible anymore, or go to their office. Do you have any tips or tricks about how can you make that initial outreach, and how can you make networking in this remote setting something that's fun and enjoyable and actually like a fruitful experience?
Okay.
Yeah. Go in. Jump in.
Yeah. So I like to deal with people who are engaged on LinkedIn. So when you go to people's LinkedIn page, if you see that they have activity, they're more likely to respond to you. And so if you see the posts that they're on, you can learn a little bit more about what they're talking about. And I think that's where you kind of get in, is to have a comment about a comment, right? Or say something that's actually meaningful, as in more than one sentence. I think that's how you engage people at this point. And once you're trying to add people as in to connect, I think it's really important to send that very quick note that says, hey, I noticed this about you, or this is why I'm interested in connecting. And then immediately offer something, whether that's a compliment or you have a question about their work. Then in that last portion, all right, that last third, then you start talking about what you need, which I think is going to what we talked about initially, which is the relationship is going to be the most important thing. And if you're coming person first, it will be obvious.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do is to reframe networking as nerding out with folks, because then you're actually reaching out about things that you're interested in rather than reaching out to get them to do something for you. And I think this is a perfect time to nerd out. Like if you want to talk to people about, esports and web development, like set that Zoom up and invite people, like put it up, see who will come out. And I'm seeing that there was a huge like explosion of all those like live streams and events, the first couple weeks that we were in quarantine, and they've kind of like, filtered out, and just the dedicated people are sticking around. But that means that there's opportunity for us to connect with people in unique ways and to talk about things that are related to the job that maybe aren't exactly just, hey, I'm talking to you about this one role, but just talking to you and trying to build that connection, build that relationship. And I think I love what you're saying. It's like, this is the time to get creative. This is the time to do the weird thing. And I'm finding that people who are doing live streams, who are starting podcasts, who are, creating blogs or writing posts or interviewing people and doing all that kind of crazy stuff, they're the ones who are finding those ins. I saw someone who got laid off, and she created her own organization called Chicago Superstars, where she invited all the people she knew who got laid off, and she put them all on a spreadsheet together. And now they have a huge Slack group, and they all support each other in the job search. Like, do something to help people, do something to connect people, and you'll stand out from the crowd. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I absolutely agree on everything everyone's saying on that. And it's so true. If you can bring something as far as sharing, not asking, but sharing something, you're always going to build a relationship, because no one wants to always be giving. They want to take also. And by offering both sides of the party, you're now on common ground. And it's not that you're leveraging it, because at the end of the day, if someone helps you, you're going to want to help them back. And that's the goal on building a relationship. Those creative ideas. I mean, I already have one of my candidates that is networking by just, reaching out to old people that he hasn't worked with in a long time, and sending, a little Grubhub or whatever your delivery system is, a Starbucks, and just say, hey, I'd love when you get this to click my name and let's have a quick conversation. I just want to see how you're doing. How's everything going in your current situation? Because not everyone's, like Martin was saying earlier, not everyone's situation is being reflected on LinkedIn because they still want to show a persona of, hey, I'm still capable. I'm still doing something right. I'm not hurt by this, and I can still keep moving forward. But at the end of the day, without asking or following up with someone, you'll never know. And bringing something to the table, even if it's a, how are you doing? It's a whole lot better than, hey, I saw this on there. Can you help me with this? These times, especially when you're, like you say, everyone's working from home. These are crazy times. These unorthodox ways are going to be the opportunities to separate you, to get yourself into a position just to have a friendly conversation, maybe.
Awesome. And, I think this is a question that I see coming up in other live streams that I've been listening to, and just kind of this thought around video interviewing. I think there's a lot of people that are scared of it, or phone interviews or video interviews, whatever it may be. Do you have any quick tips or tricks for people that maybe this is their first time they're going to be going into a job interview from their living room?
I can speak on it. Doing interviews constantly and setting up interviews for my clients or the candidates that are not with my clients, or even when we're doing internal recruiting. One tip, if you have a computer with a camera, use that. Don't use your phone. It is just not going to be healthy for you. Because you're going to get nervous. That camera's going to start shaking. You're really just trying to look right in your face. Now you got half your forehead showing only, and it's going to be a little bit easier for you if you can sit down. Another tip on it is making sure that you look professional. Just because we're all 45 days staying in your house doesn't mean you can look like you've been 45 days in your bed. Dress up for it, and also dress appropriately. Absolutely, if it's a new age, I would suggest this type of attire, a collar, it's always going to be beneficial, but also making sure the simplest thing, like you're on the one side of your house and the service isn't good. Well, bring that network closer so you're not having any lag. You set yourself up for success. Little things that a lot of people also need to do is record, test it out, find out how your body motions are looking. Because you're right there, first time doing it, you're nervous as heck, you're hoping you're going to do everything right. And you don't realize that you might be twitching, you might be shaking the table by patting your foot on the ground. Record yourself, ask yourself a couple questions, see if you're doing the right thing. Another one that I always make sure is, if you have something in the background, make sure it's centered. You don't want to be this guy like that, and it's just, you don't give anyone a rhyme or reason to just say this is awkward. What are you doing? You know what I mean?
I love that. And I want to double down on the record yourself piece. I've been encouraging people to do that for years as a way to practice for interviews rather than looking in the mirror and doing it, because looking in the mirror is too real time and we need to be able to hear ourselves back. I think, the first time I heard a recording of myself, I was like, oh, that's what I need to change. It's like so mind blowing. And I think I still say but whatever. And no one to hear it. But these are the things that your brain will subconsciously start fixing things if you hear your stories out loud. You'll notice where you ramble. You'll notice where you need to be more clear. And the nice thing is that we already have every website that exists in the world that gives you the list of questions you're probably going to be asked, and 80% of those you could probably find. So just get them and stream of conscious answer them, and then listen back for the best stories that you told, and then practice those stories. The more we practice our stories, the better. I know it stinks to hear yourself. It's not fun, but it is super, super helpful.
Yeah, thinking about just some tech things, it is okay to just go on the internet and find out what works in terms of your specific camera. I think a lot of people underestimate things like lighting. It's really important to use as much natural light as possible, right? Don't have lighting that's directly over your head. I also have encouraged a job seeker to make sure that they have a conversation with their loved ones, right? Or what is the best time for this interview? A lot of times, Danny, this, you're scheduling and going back and forth. And if you can just have the conversation in advance that, hey, if you could take the dog between 4 and 5, that'd be great. I think if you have those types of options, it's really important to consider. And facial expressions. You don't get to lean in the same way that you would in person to seem engaged, right? Because that's a little bit uncomfortable. But you do need to be really considerate of when you're on mute. Are you smiling? Are you looking at the camera? Do you need to take a sticky note and then put it right there next to your camera so you remember to look at it and smile? You can tell when someone's upset over the phone. So, of course, we can hear that very voice if you're not practicing and, giving us yourself, but with enthusiasm and professionalism. So I think it's really important to be mindful of the tech stuff. And the final thing for me would be the legal pad does not disappear just because you're not in person, right? The Pradfolio, you still need to have that. You still need to have a sheet that says, things about you, you want to say maybe in one column. Then you have in the next column things you want to point out about the company. You can still have notes because they can't see what's going on down here. So please don't get rid of the legal pad or the Pradfolio just because we are not in person.
One really quick additional thing to add, there's a new trend of one-way video interviews. And I got to say, I'm someone who makes videos every morning. And when I was asked to do one of those, I had a near panic attack. So know that these things are tough. And there are websites where you can practice that. I don't have any off the top of my head, but if you Google like those one-way videos, try and do some recordings where you are concise with your stories too. Like record yourself on your computer doing a 1-minute story or 1-minute answer, because those I find to be the most nerve-wracking for folks.
Yes, I'm going to jump just right back towards that. Is consolidating or extending. Say what you have to say, of course. In repeating yourself and recording, you get to actually narrow it down and really concise. But also make sure you're answering the question correctly. During interviews, if you think you're saying the right thing and you're questioning yourself, you might want to ask, am I answering the correct question? I don't want to go down the wrong path. I want to make sure I'm answering the correct answer, a question. And then another one would be also make sure for the newer going into the world, into the market, and that you haven't done this before. So you just saying that I worked on this project and did this technology, that doesn't explain how well you learned and executed your knowledge on that path. And then some of the people that are, been in the business for 15 years, haven't interviewed in 7 or plus years. Remembering going back and explaining a little bit more in detail with the steps. And that can be from conception all the way to delivery and then support. Doing that, you repeatedly keep going. Your interview is going to be so much more streamlined, a little bit cleaner. The edges are going to be sharper. The more you get to do that, the more than you realize, oh yeah, I got to do this too. I need to add that in there. And now you get to add that repetition in, and it just sounds even more concise and put together. You sound like you know what you're talking about.
I completely agree. And that those are wonderful tips. I have 2 more questions that I want to make sure we get to before turning it over to questions from people who are joining us. And the first one, we talked about it, I believe Anika brought it up earlier, about pivoting. And now all of you work with people who are job searching, of course, on a daily basis. And I imagine many of you work with people who are transitioning careers, are looking to go in a different direction. Naturally, I think now with changes that are happening in the workforce, potentially people are considering pivoting or are thinking that it's probably the best option for them. How do you begin approaching a career pivot or a career change? And does that look different based on the number of years you've been in a career, or kind of what other things should people be considering if they are looking to change careers during this time?
I have a few ideas on that, and pull me back if I'm going off on a tangent that's not exactly the question. But one of the things that I'm seeing very often with, the number of layoffs and furloughs and everything that's happening is when we get a job, we typically outsource our identity and our reputation to the company and the title. So the company has a reputation, and we take that as our professional reputation, and the company gives us a title, and we take that as our title. And then if we get laid off, or if something happens and we don't work there anymore, we lose not only our title and our reputation, but our whole sense of identity. And so what I'm seeing a lot of folks dealing with right now is that they then fall into this identity of the job seeker. And the job seeker is a very odd identity because it doesn't have like an action, right? It doesn't have a problem that it's solving for anyone else. It's just our own kind of weird place that we're in. And so this is a huge opportunity to pivot, to find something new, a new identity that you want to take on. But a lot of folks I'm seeing are waiting for a company to validate that they are that thing before they can talk about being that thing. And that becomes a catch-22, because then you're not going to talk confidently about your ability to do it, so the company won't see you as the person that can do it, and then they won't give you that identity. And so it kind of keeps going in loops. If you don't see yourself as a UXer, the company won't see you as a UXer, and then they won't give you the title of the UXer, which you so dearly crave. And so one of the things I'm trying to get folks to do is give themselves the title. You take the responsibility to give yourself, or take the ownership of giving yourself the title you want, but then take on the responsibility of living up to the title you gave yourself. So now wake up every day and say, if I was a UX designer right this second, what would a task I would be assigned be? And then assign yourself that task and go do it. How would a UX designer do a job search? Okay, a UX designer would approach it in this way, and then start looking at it in that perspective. And I think we need to be able to give ourselves the identity and then live up to that identity and then sell that identity to a company, rather than waiting for someone to relieve us of our insecurities and say, you are this thing. And so that's something that I'm encouraging people to build their little freelance business, side hustle, whatever the thing might be, that they can put on their resume, put on their LinkedIn, and own that name, own that thing, and make it tangible, so that they don't get lost in this kind of insecure, like, I'm a job seeker identity, kind of fear-based mindset. That's something I'm really trying to help people with.
So thinking, I guess two things came to me around pivoting. I love the Ken Coleman show and everyone who's a part of the Dave Ramsey family, but Ken Coleman focuses on career, just in general, what it means, why you're focused on what you're focused on, all those kinds of things. I think it's great. But his message, and I'm not going to get this right because there's a lot of steps, but I think you have to be clear. Like, there has to be a sense of clarity on what you're going to do next, because you could do anything to make money, right? So why are you doing that thing? And then I think it's important to know some of the steps, because there really aren't steps for things anymore, but how do you credential to become that thing? Is it YouTube University? Are you trying to become a coder? Because you can learn that through YouTube, right? Well, do you need books for this, right? There are government programs still that will help people who are transitioning out of work and trying to find new work. So how do you credential to do it? And then how consistent can you be in the learning? And like Martin is saying, like, how consistently can you put out your efforts towards becoming that thing? And on the other end, I always tell people, and this is something that was shared with me by my mentor, your job is always going to be a combination of things that you will do, things that you can do, and things that you want to do. And so I think as long as you're, seesaw on how important those things are to you, maybe this next job for you is something that you will do and you can do so that later you can do what you want to do. So I think it's really about definitely adding on what Martin's saying about it. You said that's what you are, so be that thing, and then prepare yourself to share that outwardly.
Nice. I definitely agree with both of y'all. It is identifying and full-heartedly going into that one section is only going to exude itself right out of you. Now, I think it does have a little bit of difference if you're beginning and you're going into the career for the first time. I think you definitely need to narrow down your love or your passion, or the sheer fact what you're capable of. If you're a full stack developer and you're all right in the front, but you love the back, hey, let them know that, because then there's going to be times where they only need a 10 to 20% person that's capable on the front and very strong in the database. So, making sure you're capable on that, that's awesome. But that pivoting when you're 15 years in a career and now, you've been furloughed and you don't think that you're going to be able to get invited back to that company. And now you're saying, this is my time to finally transition out of either the management style and getting back into my coding that I missed, or either what it may be, in that you said, hey, I loved being in the infrastructure. I really love the security side now. I can take a step back and really dive deeper into that. And both of you guys said it straight. Figure out which one it is. And then at the same time, the folks that are a little bit more seasoned and have an array of talent at their disposal in their back pocket, you can make both. You can have an argument, and that's okay to be able to say, I can move into two different categories. I can take the infrastructure, I can take systems, or I can even be an operations guy. If it's on the management level and I'm never going to want to put my hands on a coding again, well, that's okay. You have the skill sets. If you have 5-7 years in all of these sections, you're allowed to be able to say, I got 3 resumes and I'm targeting individual companies because I want to do that one specific thing with that one company. I wouldn't want to do it with this other company. That's why I would rather be in operations on this side. And taking ownership on where you want to go and said which direction, and if you are, you're going to do it, make it happen. You can do anything. Why are you doing this one thing? That's the one thing where you got to hold back the reins and say, all right, which direction I'm going to go with, and I'm going to ride with it.
That's great. And I had only recently heard, this idea of having multiple different resumes, and I think that is important, and particularly if you're trying to cast a wider net and trying to figure out what opportunities are out there that you would want, or that you might be suited for. My last question, and then I definitely want to hear from everyone on the call, is, a lot of us, I do not know percentages, but most people are working from home in some capacity now. And who knows for how long companies might be doing this. I saw Twitter said working from home is forever, and Google is through the end of the year. So with that in mind, for people that are job seeking, is there anything that they should be considering when during this job search, knowing that potentially more jobs are going to be remote? Does that change the scope of a job search? If people are unsure about working from home all the time or working remotely, do you have any ideas, suggestions on what remote work looks like in terms of finding remote work and what that might look like moving forward?
Yeah, I think this is the time for being flexible, because companies are in reaction mode right now. They're either growing because places like Zoom are trying to launch their 2.0, which just what I think mine updated today, and and they're seeing a huge spike of users because everyone is at home and everyone's working remote, or they're in crisis mode because everything is going, they're an in-person business and they don't have anyone there. So I think the key thing to remember when we're trying to find remote roles is that everyone has a problem. And if you can identify the problems that they have and offer up solutions, you can create your own roles. This is the time where, oh, they're hiring a senior. Okay, well, still reach out and see if you can get them talking to you about a junior role. If you can get them talking about what they're excited about, what they're building, or what they're struggling with, and what's not going well, you can listen for opportunities to say, if you have 5 hours of budget a week, I'm happy to take that off your hands so you can go fix the crisis and not have to do this day-to-day work. And I see a lot of folks who are able to, if they keep an open mind instead of just being binary, yes or no, can I get this job, being a little bit more like living in the gray and saying, well, they think they want this job, but let's go see what they really need. And talking to them in more of a consultative problem solver way, it can open up a lot of opportunities for part-time work, contract work, remote work, and all these different things that exist. And I think that being that sort of ultimate flexibility person who's always there to help. And let's say there is no way to help and you're not right for the role, reach out to someone in your network who you think is and connect them with the company. Like if you are constantly trying to find ways to help, the company will want to bring you in at some point, or it'll just build a great baseline where you're helping everyone in your network and everyone loves you. And so these are the things that I think are really important when we're thinking about just being ultimately flexible. You need me to come in? I'll come in. You need me to stay home? I'll stay home. You need me to go to a co-working space? That sounds good to me. And just having a little bit less of less hang-ups now that everything is sort of in transition.
And I'm going to piggyback a little bit on that. It's true, being able to, because think about it, if you're on a team, people build a team to be successful, right? And depending on what the product or what they're trying to deliver, they're not building on the delivery. They're building the team so that it can be delivered. So being able to offer that opportunity to say, what are you really trying to get achieved right now? And my skill sets, we might maneuver, it might change a little bit at my position or someone that's already there. It's still, it's going to be something that they're growing so it could be more successful no matter what the application, the problem, the scenario. So that's absolutely true, Martin. Love that. Another, for me, that concept of being flexible, absolutely. But at the end of the day, this is going to pass. You have to think all these companies, either they're going to start cutting overhead now and start doing more days from home. Remote's going to turn into in the office. And being ready for it and being available, Rezult Group, we are still hiring people, getting people to work, and businesses are learning that. And like you said, Martin, either they're thriving or they're just surviving. And in the way of that happening, they're still figuring new ways of how they're running their business and revamping and revitalizing how that business is going to run. And so they're also learning how to onboard members remotely, knowing that that's not their end goal. They don't want to be all remote because depending on the business or the structure is, they want to be in the office. That's fine because you got to be able to learn, be flexible, and know that the end goal is not to have remote if that's not what you want. If you want to always be remote, then that's a different search. You're looking for only remote opportunities. And those companies, they label it differently. They're saying work from home instead of, remote and then stars next to it. They're trying to give you hints. Like those ones are like, hey, we need you now and we're going to onboard you remotely. But if this turns into a perm, we're going to need your butt in the office. it's one of those scenarios, and how to siphon through and filter it all. You'll see it, and honestly, you'll know it more so if you see that same web page monster, LinkedIn. They see it posted at that same job, every week at the same time. They're saying this is a hot commodity, and that's something that you need to actively pursue, and you need to jump in on it. I know this might shift a little bit, but when you are looking at those online, you think about the time zone. I'm sorry to say this, but people in HR, if they've been told they got a job to post and it's 4:30, they're automatically, no, I'm not going to post this till tomorrow morning. So there's times that you need to be in the seat looking at these job postings, and think about all the time zone. We're talking about remote. That could be Pacific time. So you need to think 7:30 to 8:30 for Eastern. You need to think about 9:30 to 10:30 Central time. And then, heck, if you want to go Mountain time, you can do that too. But Pacific time, you're going to be thinking around 11:30 to 12:30. Those HRs that are walking in or posting, those are the times that you need to keep circling back, refreshing, and seeing if that post has been posted right then and there. Sorry, I went on a little tangent.
Okay. Wanted to definitely say about job descriptions. I know before it was easier to just read and submit. You need to read specifically because of what Danny's saying. Sometimes they actually are telling you that you're coming into the office at whatever point regarding your safety. And I think, just to answer your question plainly, Maija, I think this is where everyone who is job seeking right now, you take things seriously. You take everything as serious as you can. And you take yourself seriously in a way that you will be consistent and really productive throughout the search. Obviously, going back to the creativity, I think that's huge. Everyone submits a resume. Did you submit a cover letter? Do you also have a document that highlights your skills? Did you also submit your portfolio link? So I think it's doing that little extra stuff. But the main thing is just thinking around this idea of having a choice. People should be willing to create different options. And so Martin's given us a lot of examples on ways you can make an ask and then have them later seeking you. And so I'd say now's the time to be flexible, since that's the theme word for this question. It's time, if you wanted that full-time with benefits, to maybe think about what it looks like to be gaining experience through contracts or simply just temporary work, or adding passion projects that have to do with people in your community that can also be a display of your own work. So I'd say that's where I, come in for that triple threat on the flexibility for this one.
Awesome. We have some questions rolling in, and I invite everyone else to continue to type some in. I think this is a really great one, and see if I can summarize it. But, the event world, people that are in events or event promotion and things like that have been completely turned upside down during this time, as have a lot of industries. Do you have any ideas or suggestions about how to sell yourself for when an industry kind of has completely changed, whether that's now the virtual event world, and things like that. Yeah, I'm trying to make it as broad as possible for everyone. But of course, the event world is a great example of an industry that is completely changed.
Yeah, I think selling yourself is an interesting phrase. I got into coaching through personal brand coaching, and I find that yes, branding is selling yourself, sales is selling yourself. There's a lot of selling yourself in there, but at the end of the day, you're not selling you, you're selling your proposed solutions to their problems. And I think that this is a helpful shift in mindset to get us away from the pain of rejection as well. Because a lot of companies are all over the map right now, and they're going to be trying to bring people on, but then changing their mind, and then all sorts of stuff is happening. And we'll take a lot of this ghosting, a lot of this stuff. Like, if everyone's working remote, it's going to take them a lot longer to get the team together to make a decision. And you might feel like you're getting ghosted for a week when really they're just trying to get their act together. And I think it's important to remember that they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting your proposed solution to this problem that they have. And by thinking about it that way, we can go back and say, how do I propose a better solution? The same way a salesperson would, or the same way, an entrepreneur would. Nike doesn't say, oh, they didn't buy our shoe. They say, how do we tweak the shoe to make them buy it next time, right? They don't take it personally. And I think that that's a really important shift when we start thinking about selling ourselves. It's not selling ourselves, it's selling our skills and the solutions that our skills bring to the company. And if they say no, it's because we didn't understand their problem right, or we didn't communicate our solution right. And it's a communication problem, not a self-worth problem.
Great. I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think nail on the head, Martin. When you are thinking about the shift in the mindset of how you can bring a solution to someone's problem, doesn't have to be on paper, I do this, I've done that, that's the issue. It's how can I do something that will, in the end, make your team or the company better as a result of me being there for you. And it's just the concept of, the ghosting, the no, he's right about that. I'm talking to plenty of people right now that are setting up interviews, but they have to first, they're dealing with so much delay that they have no time to get their work done, because now they're waiting for someone else's response back to say, yes, go ahead with that. Now that moves into the snowball effect of, all right, well, we're going to push that back another day before I talk, or another day before I review that resume, or 3 or 4 more days before I can get back to that candidate about, hey, we're looking at your resumes. We're not there yet. Even getting some type of answer. So don't hesitate to start immediately calling them back or shooting emails, because, keep them going. Make sure that your name's at the end of their tongue. But shifting the point, allowing yourself to say, okay, even if I did get a no, I'm always should take in responsibility. I shouldn't say it's the company's fault. Because like Martin said, if I'm not bringing something to the table that can solve or expedite whatever their problem is, then you're not really helping. You're being more of a problem. You're not really a solution. And I also think, and this is just something that I think everyone should do, is no's are good. No's teach you so much. The sheer fact that if I get a no, but I call that same client again, and they tell me no 2 times, I got further than I did the last time. And another thing, in an interview, a person gets an interview and you find out that either the HR person or a recruiter comes and calls you and say, hey, they didn't like that you answered this way, or you didn't have enough experience in this. Well, now you know. If you didn't know, or you're going to say, dang it, I do have that experience. I didn't talk about it. I should have said something about that. And knowing that you're going into a situation and how to present yourself, you can go into all the industries and you'll find out there's a wedge of business where your talents are needed. You just got to figure out, how do I get into that wedge of business, and how do I present myself in a way that it will, no matter what, hands down, put a good old shining light on me.
Awesome.
Just going to add quickly, I think research your industry by attending events. If events are your thing, then you should be in as many free and maybe low-cost paid events so that you can not steal, but we'll just go with respectfully borrow people's ideas. You can then host your own events and record those events. You can create a highlight video like you're an NFL prospect on the best things you've done during social events versus book clubs versus meetings that you've hosted. I think for me, it's really about what extra are you doing, because everyone submits a resume. So just try to be thinking creatively around how you're going to sell yourself, and then go with that.
Great. I think this is a very valuable question. If someone does find themselves furloughed or laid off, how should they talk about that in their LinkedIn headline? Or how should you be talking about that?
I look at this as a branding problem. As soon as all the layoffs started happening, I saw victim of COVID layoffs, and I saw casualty of COVID layoffs. I actually just typed in layoff and in the people search on LinkedIn and looked at everyone's profiles. And I'm like, okay, so if you're a victim, if you're a casualty, that means the company you worked at is an assailant and a murderer. And how do you think the next company is going to digest those words, right? They're going to digest it as victim mindset. They're going to digest it as negativity. They're going to digest it as woe is me. Rather than coming from a place of power, we're coming from a place of pity. And I don't think that that is a strong place to come from when trying to convince a company to give you 6 figures. So I think that we need to reverse it and say, I'm still whatever I am, right? If I'm not coaching at GA, does it mean I'm not a coach? No, I'm still a coach. I'm a coach on the hunt for the next coaching gig. And that is what we need to do. We need to own that identity, keep that identity, and then whatever we say on our profile, like what the contact that I met, Meg, who started Chicago Superstars, she owned the layoff. She said, I've been laid off. She put it in a big post. She put it out there, got hundreds of people to connect her with people, and she's out running to the races, but it came from a sense of I'm ready to work, not from a sense of woe is me. And I think that's a really important distinction.
And I agree. The whole labeling, you don't need to label on LinkedIn and in the social media world saying that I'm part of a furlough or COVID-19 got me. The sheer fact that if you are searching, like Martin said, you're searching and you still have the title that you have. Just because you're not in the seat right now, you're still not, you haven't lost your identity. I mean, if you're a director, you're a senior, you're a junior, mid-level, doesn't matter. You're still that individual. So you shouldn't, in my opinion, and of course take it with a grain of salt, you shouldn't be telling the world your problem with not having a problem or with a problem. You should be telling everyone, hey, I'm here to help people's problems. And that is where you are going to be, personally, you're going to feel better about it. You're going to also want to have the drive to get to that point. And allowing that to happen, it only sets you up for success. And being able to do in the interview, I am part of one of the furloughs. That's the time when you get to talk about your previous scenario, your previous situation. Get there first, then discuss.
Awesome. We have another question about remote volunteer work. What does that look like? Is that helpful during this time as well? I know we touched on freelance or contract work, but what about volunteer work?
I say go for it. I mean, obviously you can't put 100% of your time into volunteer work if you're looking for paid work. Everyone needs money to eat. But I do think it's important that if you've set up your search plan, so say you search mornings only, Monday through Thursday, well, you got kind of half a week to do something for someone else. And I think it's really easy for you to identify problems that are around you, problems that are happening, and then also problems that got you into it, right? We kind of forget that the passion behind the work that we're doing. Go to those companies, go to those nonprofit organizations and say, I'm able to do this for you. Just because it's also volunteer doesn't mean that there can't be some type of contract, right? You say that you'll give them 5 hours a week. I think that was one of the examples earlier. 5 hours a week is great. I'll do that for you for the next 3 months. I think it's just giving the time that you do have and then letting it really inspire you to want to put it up on your resume, to want to put it on your portfolio page.
Yeah. This is a perfect time to go reach out to places and try and use it as leverage for future roles. I had someone who was incredibly depressed in their job search. This is almost a year ago, so COVID wasn't even on the horizon yet. And they went to volunteermatch.com, found a gig that was 10, 15 hours a week, and their demeanor immediately flipped from being so down and out about rejection to being like, oh my God, I'm actually a UX designer. And then suddenly they got a job within 2 months because they were excited and jazzed and had something to talk about in interviews other than I'm job seeking, which is a huge value add to have stories to tell. You know, they're going to say, tell me about a time that you worked on a project or had a struggle with a coworker. And you want to have a coworker there that you've been struggling with to tell that story, right? So I say, you know, how many companies are about to go under right now? Help them get online. Like, help them figure out what their next step is going to be. There is an unlimited number of companies right now desperate for your help if you are open-minded enough to reach out to them.
Absolutely. Volunteering is networking. It is a direct line to learning who's out there, what's going on in your direct community. And guess who else is in that community? Your neighbors. And those are the people that know what's going on in their businesses or their spouses' businesses, their family, their aunts, uncles. I think volunteering is only like Martin said, it's going to make you feel better. As Anika said, you're going to be able to put yourself in a position where you're going to want to put it on your resume. It's going to have a conversation starter. And people are always excited to talk about stuff they're excited about. And that only drives more through your resume when you are excited what you're doing, even if it's volunteer work or it's something that's getting you a paycheck. It just express yourself as much as you can. I know we're running out of time, and I'd love to just put this one little thing in. This is switching subjects on your resume. Guys, there's thousands of resumes going in a portal every time. They are word associated. They are gone down to the point where not a human's looking at your resume first. It is a computer system and a vendor management system. People are getting all these resumes and shooting right through another portal to get to another. These guys have to have words that are going to be associated with what you're looking for. So as, like I said, read the whole description of the job, somehow imply that into the resume and explain further so you have more words that hit exactly what they're looking for in definition. And at the end of the day, too, I know you guys are coding and you guys are great coders and you're awesome at it. Please don't code and make your resume into a platform where you have bars over here, columns over here. That does not always transfer into everyone else's system appropriately. If you have a space between two words, not to say the marketing people aren't that great, you're going to have none of these words show up in any of those word processing. So please, nice, neat Word document. It is guaranteed. Sure thing. No one ever messes up when they transfer over a Word doc.
Amen. ResRunner, JobScan.co, and SkillSyncer are 3 websites that you can use if you want help with what Danny's talking about. It's basically like test corrections from like grade school. They pretty much tell you what you did wrong and you can go fix it and keep trying. So if you want that tip. I did want to add, just y'all become more interesting. I don't know if you're listening to a podcast, like Netflix is a thing, but there are podcasts out there that help with productivity, which give you interesting things to say in response to the time management question, right? Martin has a whole breakfast morning show that he does every morning. And so I think that if you are willing to get creative about how you learn and how you put yourself out there, it will show. It will make the difference.
And it will build trust. And trust is important for remote jobs. So go out and build trust with people.
Awesome. Nice.
That's great. I think that's a perfect time to end and a perfect place to stop. And we're right on time, which is pretty remarkable. So thank you all. And if we didn't get to your questions, I will make sure to jot them down and we can see how we can make sure that we answer them to the best of our ability, because there's some great questions that are there. So thank you all again for joining, and a big virtual round of applause to our panelists. We really appreciate your time and these tips and tricks for people if they are in the job search for the first time in a long time, or kind of find themselves navigating this new world moving forward. We're excited. We're going to be doing 2 more of these events with GA and TAG. So be on the lookout for upcoming topics. We're excited for this collaboration, and we hope to see you at the next one, and we hope that you implement some of these tips in your job search moving forward. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.